Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Tigers Talk Rugby. Before we get started, for those listening on Facebook or YouTube, we are on other podcasting platforms, which include Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Spotify. Now, with that, I'm Ethan Richards.
I'm Beckett Rice.
And I'm sorry for the monstrosity that is my voice, CJ Bakel.
Awesome.
Your name seems longer than it used to be.
Yeah, it does.
See, what was it last week? Last time it was I'm awesome because I correctly predicted England versus Scotland.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rub that salt in the wound for you, Ethan.
Goodness.
The Grand Slam was definitely not gonna happen.
So this episode is another
trying to avoid that.
So what we can go ahead and start with talking about England. Let's just go there. Let's be honest. The Saracens guys, other than Itoje, are not performing the way they normally do. But I mean, that's the ploy, right? Like if the Saracens aren't playing at the highest level, like and these guys hadn't really played a good, solid game of rugby since the Autumn Nations, like.
And their first game is a loss to the Ealing Trailfinders.
Yeah. Well, to be fair,
that's
against
true.
the Ealing Trailfinders, they were missing all their international boys.
Yeah.
Aside from the two American front rowers.
Yeah. It's just one of those issues where like they are not performing. I mean, and not to say that all of England's issues were on them, because England has not looked good. Their structure has not existed. Their attacking form is just poor. Like when you have a 7 versus 2 overlap and you don't use it, something's wrong, and things are going wrong behind the scenes, right? Like there's been some greater issues with the England side.
Definitely, it looks sort of, at least especially in the Calcutta Cup game, it looked like they were trying to sort of replicate what the Springboks were doing with their kicking game, but they were kicking when they shouldn't have been kicking.
Exactly.
It's kind of like Eddie Jones seems to like to try and pull stuff from the Springboks, like how he tried to pull their middle of the field 8-man maul in the last Six Nations, but it didn't really work.
Right. And I think obviously the week after they played Italy, so it was a game where they could kind of bring it back, reconstruct, reform, and kind of get away with being sloppier about what they're doing and what they're putting together. But
I think Squidge Rugby said it best on his most recent video about the England-Italy game, is that England does have something good to come out with that. From this game, that they looked a lot better than they did in the previous one. They actually looked like they had some attacking structure.
Yeah.
And they got a little bit of their fluidity back. And then if we really, really, really want to dive into the Italy side, they also had some promising pieces of play.
Yeah.
They scored the first try with that Ioane guy.
Yeah. And in actually Italy, so shifting gears to Italy, if we want Italy has looked good.
They've looked very solid. Yeah. They're probably the team I've paid the most attention to.
Yeah. The problem is they still have 91 points scored on them over the 2 games. So defensively it's still a pain. But
their defense the second game, I will say, looked better. It still needs improvement, but it was better.
Right. And they did put across those 2 games 28 points up. Things are starting to look better than they have in the last few years for Italy.
The thing is also, I think against France, they got into the French 22 about 9 or 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was around the same number against England.
Right. It's about converting.
Yeah, it was the biggest one that they missed was, I think, around the 20th minute mark when England was leading 11-8.
Mm-hmm.
And they were probably maybe about 10 meters out from the English try line. They had gotten some good phases going, so they probably could have gotten 3 points out of it at least. But then they had a ruck, and they didn't they secured it, but the ball was behind the last rucker. So
Yeah.
Billy Vanapola just flew in and hit the and hit Varney the 9
Right.
and killed it all. So
Yeah.
they got to work on securing their ball better.
And like it's a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing to be able to like take those pushes and those pressures that you get where you finally making it into the 22. You're in that position where you can score or you can put 3 up or and kind of maintain that. And I think if Italy can get that consistency, yes, they'll be playing shootout games, but it's better than playing games where they're 10-50 or 18-41. Like even then, like 18-41 is still like, okay, they put 18 points up. Like that's more respectable than most of their games in the last day.
And it would have been closer if it weren't for a couple of like really dumb mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely for Italy. It's definitely a lot of little things here and there. You know, their biggest issue on attack, I think, is just securing their ball. Yeah. And sometimes they throw lazy passes, but it's definitely things that they can fix.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bear in mind, this is also still a very young Italy team, so
yeah,
experience will help.
What's wait, quick thing, Beckett? What's the 10's name again?
Garbisi.
Looks
good. He looks
he's
very good.
Looking good. So
his only issue is work a little bit on his kicking.
Yeah, so we've kind of covered England. We've covered Italy. Now I want to talk about our 2-0s. Because right now, that is going to be the most important thing going into these next few weeks is how are these teams going to perform? Because, I mean, Wales and France have had 2 games in their hands that are like, have been interesting to watch, have been dynamic, have been important. And I think France is looking better than Wales.
Oh, absolutely. I'd agree with that.
I think this is a point, like we mentioned Squidge earlier, and he does make a lot of great points. I disagree with him that Wales would have won both of those games without the red cards.
Yeah. I think the Ireland game, they probably would have won without the red card, but the Scotland game, no. That was really the defining moment.
100%. Like, I think that red card in the Scotland game really, I don't know how to put it. It made everything seem a little bit more lopsided because you could see that Scotland was firing on all cylinders. That Stuart Hogg try was amazing. Like literally, they just seemed like they were unstoppable. And then that happened. It's like, oh, crap.
And even the ending of that game, like in a 14 versus 15, when it comes down to like taking apart with a barely tipped ball to prevent another try score. Like imagine if they played that 30 minutes with 15 players. Like I feel like Wales, like although they're looking like decent, like I mean this is the most competitive tournament in the world for any sport, in my opinion. I think you look here and you see like consistently 4 teams that can compete, occasionally 5 teams that can compete for the for this championship title or this yearly title. Like, and Wales right now, like they are looking competitive enough for Ireland and they're looking competitive enough for Scotland, but I don't think they're looking competitive enough for France.
Yeah,
which I think hurts me to say.
Yeah, I think Wales can probably finish about 3rd, especially thanks to that Scotland upset. The biggest thing from them is their defense has looked like it used to look.
Yeah, their defense has looked great.
It's looked much better. And Luis Rees-Zammit, wonder kid right there. He's really good.
The only thing I'm going to disagree with you on is 3rd, because their games that they have left are England at home, Italy, and then France. And I think because the England game is at home, and because, like we were saying, England's looking like a struggle bus. This
Mhm.
Six Nations. I think you can look at Wales and you can say they could win out. Could. I don't think they're going to,
What?
but they could.
Yeah.
I think Wales is seeded for a second place, and I hate to say it, I think I'm buying you a France jersey.
I could see there. I don't think they'll beat France. That England game, I could see going either way, depending on they both have the week off, so it depends on how
Yeah,
they prepare. Because if England prepares and say their Saracens players get back to what they were, I'd say England have it.
I
So
think
second, third to third.
I think it's
is
coming
fair.
down to bonus points. I
Yeah.
think it's whether or not Wales gets the bonus point against England,
Or France, because
France,
they
yeah,
might get it against Italy.
or
I could-
yeah,
They probably are going to get it against Italy. Let's be honest.
Probably.
right, or honestly, like, I mean, they're both playing England, right, in the next two matches. I believe that's literally back to back. Those
Yeah.
two matchups. So I think you look at it, and I think it's whoever gets a bonus point if they both beat England. I think that is the most volatile matchup for both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That game could swing it. I think that match could probably swing either team's tournament for the rest of it. Because if England wins, they're going to go into the next couple of games just probably with the momentum, and then Wales is going to be like, oh, great.
So, France. Let's focus specifically on what is making France a dominant roster right now.
I'd probably have to say there's obviously probably going to win World Player of the Year if they're still going to announce that anytime soon, Antoine Dupont. And their defense has just looked incredible, I will say.
Oh, gosh. It's been impressive, especially like against a solid Irish side. Like this past weekend, I feel like France's defense and their back three played the way that they need to really put things together. And that's why, I mean, that game was very low scoring, right? Like it was 13-15. Like it's not a high scoring match. Like it's one of those moments where like things were scored when players started to break down and play started to break down, not because people were playing poorly.
Definitely it's France and also Wales have been sort of their defense has really been the biggest part of the fact that they're both 2-0 right now.
Agreed.
But they're often, still that French back line is still crazy. And I think they might be getting Vakatawa back within this either the game against Scotland or Scotland or the game against England.
Well, either way, they got an extra bye week this week, and then they play a game, and then they got another bye week, and then going into the finals. So they might get them back with either next match or the final week.
Yeah, I think all the players who are gone are gonna be able to come back for the France-Wales matchup.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I think, but you mentioned Dupont, and I really want to talk about that because I think Dupont has been their whole team in a sense. I think he seems to be, every time I'm sitting there watching in the last two games, every moment I'm sitting there, I feel like Dupont is every single place on the field making everything happen always. And it's not to say that like the other players aren't holding up to standard, because that's why they're winning. Right. They are. And I just think Dupont is just such a vessel of success for France right now.
I agree with that. Sometimes he's been sort of was the talismanic for them.
Yeah,
Is,
that's a good
I
word.
think what some pundits would say about him, like they've said about Richie McCaw in the past or something. Not to sort of put him up with one of the greatest of all time, but
Yeah.
it's sort of how he's been. I agree with that completely. That he's been sort of that focal point of success for them.
Yeah. So, last but not least, the team that barely lost to France and barely lost to Wales.
Red card.
Ireland.
Red card lost.
Yeah. The Peter O'Mahony thing, it was, I'm not going to say he didn't deserve the red or anything, but I could have also seen it potentially having been just a yellow perhaps.
Agreed.
But I know, rightfully so, World Rugby, they want to limit the head-to-head contact and concussions.
Do you think
Right.
it was worth a 3-week suspension?
I would say maybe I would have gone with like
1 or 2?
Yeah, probably 2 just because, well, no, that was 2 just so that way because they have the off week. So a 1-week ban wouldn't have mattered because he wouldn't have been playing anyway. So 2-week ban would have been what I would have gone with. Miss 1 game.
See, as somebody who's had head injuries, I respect the severity because it sets a precedent for the rest of the tournament and for the rest of hopefully the next period in rugby. That has been defined by the changes made with the pandemic.
Right.
That it's like head to head, like head contacts, and no matter the accidental or intentional aspects of it aren't going to be tolerated.
Yeah.
So I respect the decision.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to put out a rather larger argument within this. And it was something that kind of, Ethan, we've been talking about in the last week or so. So, right, Peter O'Mahony gets that head-to-head or the shoulder-to-head contact with the ruck, right? Gets the red card done. Fagerson, literally next week, same thing happens for Scotland, right? 4-week ban.
Yeah.
They should be the same punishment.
But so I'm not done yet. So they should be the same punishment. But Ethan and I both of this last week have been saying that in international rugby, there is no such thing, or the law book literally is thrown out the window when it comes to like being off your feet in rucks.
Oh yeah, rucking is such a pain to manage at that level. Like CJ's about to get me onto a huge point. So I'm gonna keep this into like a 2-sentence thing. Here we go. Rucking at an international level is at such an intense speed and physicality that the concept of rucking is so heavily morphed.
Right.
It's got the issue in which in from the side, off your feet, and like taking a player out in an improper or illegal manner, like hitting somebody in the head with a shoulder, is so hard to manage and regulate because it's so lacking in the cleanliness.
What I'm trying to say is that it just kind of seems like a catch-22, you know? Like they're not gonna enforce these laws. So then these guys are gonna be basically diving in. And then if they dive in, they're 9 times out of 10, they're gonna, or maybe not 9 times out of 10.
The chances of taking
somebody taking somebody out and hitting somebody in the head is gonna happen, and then it's just gonna be a red card. So literally, nothing's gonna. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
So the greater issue is cleaning up rucking at an international level.
Well, I think it's like if you looked at the Super Rugby Aotearoa, and I think they're doing it again for this season of Aotearoa, whenever that, I think it starts soon.
It does start soon.
Yeah. They've been enforcing the breakdown rules a little bit more harshly, and you definitely saw that with the last season. The first first 2 weeks, there's so many penalties, but then it seemed like to get much better as the players came to understood how the refs were going to play it, and they sort of cleaned it up a little bit.
Absolutely.
But definitely just jumping from that professional club, even if it's New Zealand, to international level, the standard shift is just dramatic. I don't think a lot of people realize how big of a jump that is sometimes. So that implementing that at the international level might take more time.
It's a challenge,
be a bit more difficult. Yeah,
right. But I think it's a change that needs to happen, because then you don't have things like this as feasible, because everybody is going to be making more respectable decisions. But
yes,
that's a large tangent that we've just gone on. So I'm going to bring us back to Ireland.
Right.
The rest of this Six Nations for them, they have Italy, Scotland, and then England.
Right.
So looking at what they have in front of them, I think it's very possible for them to win at least two of those, right?
But at the same time, it's also very possible that they lose all of them.
I was going to say the same thing.
It's true.
Like we've been saying, Italy looks good. Ireland looks trash.
I mean, I don't think Ireland looks trash. Personally, I think Ireland is struggling put together a full roster, and therefore they can't compete at the level that would put one or two.
Trash is probably not the right way to say it, but like they do look like they're struggle bus. They probably have the front row in the struggle bus, and then England's right behind them.
Yeah, but I think England will start to pick themselves up from it. Ireland, I think it's going to be a harder thing to pick up from, and I think Ireland should be wary of that Italy game. Not saying they will lose, but they should be. They should not take Italy lightly.
If there was a chance for Italy to win a game for the first time in the Six Nations in almost 6 years,
this is the game.
This might be it, just because of red cards and injuries and absences from the Ireland side.
Yes, absolutely.
And players not playing in form too. Some guys are pretty cold right now.
So let's take a moment, and we've started already looking towards the future for Ireland, but looking towards the future for all of these teams. Who do you think is going to make the biggest change from the first two to the last three? Who do you think is going to be the most consistent in their strength and power? And who do you think is just really going to struggle through these last couple games?
So most consistent, I'd say, would be France. I say they're going to keep that level of what they've been at. Wales, I could see, because they still have to play France and England and Italy. I could see them easily dropping to those two games against France and England. And they always get up to play England, though. But I could see it. Maybe we see a bit of a drop in that right there. Biggest pickup from how they've been playing might be a hard one to call, though.
Yeah,
I'd say Italy, because maybe they could win against Ireland, like we've been saying.
Yeah. So for me, I'm going to say I think the team that's going to stay consistent and be the most consistent, I think, is going to be France. I think you're right there. And I think I'm like, if they play through the rest of the tournament the way they played the first 2 weeks, I think I'm buying you a France jersey.
Yeah.
I think the team that's going to pick it up, and this is the hopeful faithful in me, England's going to pick it up. I think we're gonna turn things around, even though we're playing at our game against Wales away. I think it's going to be one of those same situations that we had in Twickenham. There's not a crowd. There's not going to be that impact of the away environment like they're used to or like they'd expect. And I think with the week off and with we can resurrect. Then I think the team that might flop through the rest of it, honestly, I think Wales might flop through the rest of it. I think they're the most likely to look at what's ahead of them and panic, or look at what's in front of them and struggle. And it's not that I don't think they're capable of high success. I think it's going to be an extreme for them. I don't see them going the average road.
Definitely with that England-Wales game, because I'm pretty sure it's in Cardiff, is it not?
It is.
Yeah, definitely not having to face that sea of red chanting out the Welsh national anthem,
Yeah.
because that right there is always just so hard to deal with. I think at international rugby, especially when England come to town for the Welsh.
For sure. Now, CJ.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, isn't it my turn now?
Yeah, it is.
So
Sorry.
the most consistent team, I want to say it's Ireland. I'm gonna say they're consistently struggling.
And you think that's going to be the way for the rest of the tournament?
I just hate to say it, but it might
Wooden
be.
spoons all around.
No, I wouldn't say the wooden spoon, but I'm just gonna say that they're probably gonna struggle against anybody who's not Italy.
Yeah,
that's it.
Fair.
Like they're gonna struggle against these other teams.
Mhm.
The most, the pickup one. I'll say the pickup first, and then I'll last with the team that's gonna drop off. So the biggest pickup I think is gonna be England. I'm gonna agree with the consensus.
Let's go.
Just because if they beat Wales and they're able to get past that Welsh defense, I think it's literally just Eddie Jones being like, oh, okay, we knocked a little bit of ring rust off, and then just do a little flip.
Mhm.
And they'll go into their next games probably totally fine. I apologize. Last one. The team that's going to go on the down is Scotland.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hate to say that one too, but they do well against England. Obviously, they lose a very, very close one in Wales. But look who else do they have to face? They're gonna have to face Ireland. They might squeak past a win there. Italy, they probably will do well, but I feel as if those two games they could struggle easily. And then France, I'm not even gonna.
I was going to say I could see the France game in round 3. I think if that game could tip them in that direction. I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is it's not certain like the results, right? A win, it might be a win against Italy, but it's not really a great win when they win, 15-13.
No, yeah,
it doesn't, and especially if say like Italy put, like we were just saying, that their defense has been struggle busing too, and then all of a sudden they allow Scotland to only 15.
Yeah.
So
that'd be crazy.
So
that would be insane.
That'd be wild. It's the don't look at the result. Look
at the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that, we're gonna cut it here.
I actually have one thing. There was an interesting. First off, I definitely should have picked England for picking up their game. I don't know. For some reason, I didn't think of them. But as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, oh, I don't know why I did that. But
yeah.
So interesting innovation from Italy is what Franco Smith, their coach, has been doing is he actually takes his 2 best props and puts them on the bench and puts the boys he'd normally have on the bench to start the game, and then brings on his starters after about 30 to 35 minutes so they can get that last 5 to 10 minutes playing against a tired front row, and then they have the last 40. What do you think of that innovation?
I respect it, but personally, I think I'd be too worried about the danger of injuries, right? Because like as soon as you give one of those props in for the second half and they get injured in the second half, because when people get tired, that's when play gets sloppy.
Yeah.
And so that's when injuries happen more so, especially in the front row. I would be worried about them getting injured at the 60th minute or 70th minute. And then you're like, I feel like it's more of a confusing toss up, while like, I think if you have those better props in for the first 60, like what's traditional, and then rotate, I think it's a lot less likely that that's going to be occurring.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But I still think it's an interesting way of going about it, considering Italy definitely don't have the depth that other teams would.
It kind of sounds like a Rassi Erasmus move. Not going to lie.
Like his bomb squad?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's something to keep an eye out for these next couple of weeks. Maybe we just witness the Italian scrum just starting to dominate. So I'd love to see that.
Well, the thing is, against
wild
England,
thought
they
about
did
that.
win. Against England, they did win. They won 7 scrums. England only won 4, and I don't think either of them lost any of their own scrums.
Right. I for me the winning your own scrums at this level I think is expected. So I think it's once you hit that point of like when you're losing your own scrums or winning the other team's scrums is when I'm most focused on scrum managing. So yeah, but on that, we should round it up. We have no international this weekend, but there is still club rugby going on.
Wait a minute, I have it pulled up.
Oh boy.
So right now, okay, for viewers and listeners, we are recording this on Thursday night. So this game might have already happened for you, but the Bath Gloucester game is on Friday at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. It might have already happened, but more importantly, on Saturday, we've got Harlequins Sale, Exeter Northampton, Leicester Wasps, and then on Sunday it's London Irish versus Bristol.
Come on, the Irish.
And then this is kind of a weird plug, I guess, but like Ethan and I, these last couple of weeks got Peacock, and if you can find Peacock, you can watch all these games.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Peacock is worth looking into. So, thank you for listening.
Go watch all those games I just said, please.